truth, mostly. Our ship estate at home was struck by a torpedo, and then we hit 5 mines. So it wasn't until last night that I started typing this up, but I was hoping to give everybody a copy of verbatim so you could critique me later and say, you spelled that word. But I had the whole thing done by 10:30, and it's a new program for me. Short story is 1 point for the computer and 0 for Karl. So I got 1/3 of it came out, and the rest was gibberish. That was what I put in there. At any rate, as an introduction, as a way of all the art forms, from pastel to whatever, when you're talking about pigment in watercolor, acrylics, and oils, those are 3 applications that are basically applied with a brush. And the pigments are mixed on the palette to the color that you want. And you have unlimited amount of colors and saturations. And so there's lots of things you can do. There's all kinds of magic there. Sometimes it's tough to repeat it the next day, but you know all about that. Colored pencil it's a dry form, so it's wax plus pigment. And the pigment is added to the paper. It's got little bumps in it called nap. And that allows enough friction that when you take this stick of wax, it kind of bounces along there and rubs off by friction. And to get more saturation, we can't mix up colors. We have to add it again and again in order to get the saturation that you can get with these other forms that I mentioned. You can use a little more pressure, or as I found out 7 years or so ago, you can use a solvent. And a solvent, I won't get technical on this, except to say that like things dissolve like things. So if you've got a kid at home who's got gum in their hair, you can use butter to get it out. It's because those compounds are both similar. You can get gasoline off your hand, you can get grease off your hand with gasoline. But what we're using a solvent for is not so much to get the wax or to get everything off, but to push the pigment into the paper and remove the wax. And you say, well, leave it there, it's not causing any trouble. What happens is when you put wax on something, it's tough to put more wax on it because wax is malleable. And so when you use a solvent, it not only covers everything, the hills and the valleys and all the nap, it removes the wax, leaves the pigment, and that means you can come back with a different color right over the top. And you'll see that here in certain places. You won't see any nap on this because as a chemist I've gone solvent crazy. Everything had solvent on it. And then one other thing, I can jump ahead and talk about this set of examples of what you can do with the wax, and these are all water worlds, is that I've removed the glass. And whenever I can find somebody, like this gentleman right here, he'll take a box of glass off my hands, so I don't have to put it recycle. The advantage of doing that is when you take a picture and you do not put glass on it, it's lighter, it won't break, and I can take this picture and do this. If there was glass on here, it'd be somebody saying, hey, you're putting my eyes out. So, if you've got a watercolor or a pastel, you do need something to protect it. And if you don't spray it, then you're going to have to put glass on it. And that's okay. You know, different strokes, different folks, whatever works for you. So I want to say some more general information as far as the introduction is that in order to make a picture realistic, you have to draw your subjects or objects carefully and proportional to the viewer's distance. So if you've got kid running around behind his parents or something like that, you want to draw a picture of that because it was kind of cute and brings you memories. Obviously, that child that's in the slight distance has to be slightly smaller. And you say, well, it really doesn't matter. No. Even a child can look at it and say, yeah, they won't be able to maybe tell you what it is, but they'll see that it's wrong. So that's the first thing, is you have to have your subjects accurately drawn. And then in colored pencil, because this doesn't necessarily apply to everybody else, I use a color swatch to make sure my colors match my photographs, and almost always photographs. These take approximately 40 hours each to do. And I don't do it in one sitting. I'm already blind enough as it is, but it takes a while to do it, so you almost have to work from a photograph. You know, Monet went out and he painted the same cathedral a couple times a day and all the different raining and so forth. 40 hours, it's going to take you more than a day to get that done if you worked all the way through. And then the last thing is that you have to demonstrate the light angle reflected from things in the picture by increasing the saturation of the color or by darkening the same with gray or black or whatever it is. So you have those three elements. Your subject is like pretty obvious that this is a tugboat. It's pretty obvious that those are buildings back there. Those are they've carefully drawn in the right perspective. I know because I copied the photograph. These are all from my own photographs, and there's nothing wrong with tracing or copying your own work. You can't do somebody else's unless you get permission. But then you need to get the color right, and I'll pass it around just for funsies. This is a color swatch, my idea of a color swatch. And so I've got the color on here, and they've been solvent or Gamsol, and then which color it is and where I think I want to put it. So that if you were doing a comparison, for instance, you come in here and say, well, yeah, that's about the right color. Now, if it is, I usually throw 2 or 3 of these away because they don't all work, but I transfer them to a master's swatch. And I leave that down when I'm working on it, so that when I go and have coffee and I come back and maybe my memory's not perfect or being biased by something, like my wife telling me to take the garbage out, I'll remember what color I used. I won't go back here and say, ooh, was that 50% gray, or was it French gray, or was it warm gray? It's all down here so that you don't make that mistake. There's plenty of ways to make mistakes. So that you've got your shape correct, you've got your color correct, and you know how to do your shading so that it looks right when the sun strikes it. You look at a car out in the parking lot, and there'll be spots on that car somewhere that are spectral. They don't have any color at all. There's so much light that it isn't reflecting back the color of that paint. And then as you go away from it, it will be bright, quite bright, and then it will get to the regular color, and as you go around the edge, it's kind of in the foreshadowing or whatever, it starts turning darker in color, and underneath looks like it's black. Well, it's all one color. I don't paint the other side of a car, but the point is, whether it's a ball or anything, you have to show that to fool the person who's looking at a 2D flat surface to think that it's a 3D subject, 3D, believable. Okay, now getting into colored pencil, I'll have to abandon the other forms of art. And I've done them all. I won't say well, but no, actually I enjoyed every one of them, and it was kind of an evolution to get to where I'm going. And I found something I like to do, and that's probably true of every person in this room. There's some one of them, some one form that really appeals to you. That maybe it's the way you can feather it or fimbriate it so that it fits into the picture. But for colored pencil, there are several brands, and I don't have stock in any of them. Give me a piece of paper and I'll do what I can do. Basically, all this stuff is on Stonehenge. That's what I was I bit my teeth, or what do you say? At any rate, Stonehenge is these papers are cotton. They're not really paper, they're cotton. Paper is wood fiber, and nothing wrong with that, but cotton takes the color really well. So that if you get a little spaghetti on your shirt, which is cotton, it has a tendency to stay there. And once in a while, you decide you want to do some artwork, so you move it around a little bit. You temporate it. Well, the same thing happens with colored pencil. Put color down, and it's kind of smeared around. So, the other thing is, all of my pictures, I work flat, but this is a piece of masonite. Nothing special. It's wood that's been under a lot of pressure. It's like me lately. But at any rate, it's a firm piece, and it's coated with acrylic so that I can dust that. I can wipe it with a damp towel, no problem. I can tell you for a fact, and I'm not exaggerating, I could take any and all of these into the shower. It would ruin the frame, but it's sealed. I'm using an acrylic spray, and I don't have any stock in this either. But you can get this at Bi-Mart, Home Depot. You can buy it at an art shop. It's usually more at an art shop. They get it from Home Depot. So you set it down, and I would advise, unless you want to have a nice coating on your table, put down some throwaway newspaper, and then you spray it. I usually go spraying it this way, and then I spray it at right angles, and I spray it this. I'm retentive, so I put 3 coats. I go from 4 different directions, and then I let it sit. This happens to be a satin, so it doesn't glare. I just got rid of the glass. The last thing I want is more glare. So satin does not glare. You can see here there's virtually no glare. So it looks more natural. I took the picture, there was no glare. But then I let it sit, and my wife says, "Are you spraying again?" You open the window, and I let it dry. And then I come back and I do that 3 times, 4 times. I will use an entire can of this on each one of these. Wow. So, but, so I never do anything in moderation. And the whole point is, that's the only protection it's going to have. And so, our beach place, I had a painting in the bathroom, and I don't know what happened, and I don't care, except my nephew called me and says, "Oh, that water came out of the toilet bowl," not the bowl, but the tank, "and got on your watercolor." And I said, "Don't worry about it." I said, if it wrecked it, it wrecked it. I said, "Don't worry about that." I couldn't see anything at all. Because the water can't get through this. This is acrylic. It's the same thing you people painting with acrylic is. It's a polymer.
Spray the back too?
Pardon?
Do you spray the back as
No.
well? No.
No. I don't mind if it breathes. Probably a good idea that it breathes. It used to be, before they had acrylic paint, that people would paint on what they called a planchette, which was a board or a wide board, and they were mostly doing Jesus Christ or Holy Mother or whatever, and they'd crack or something like that, because the wood is alive and it's trying to dry and it's changing through time. These things, especially like a plywood, I don't know if I have one up here that's made of plywood, but it doesn't really matter. If you use plywood, you want to get one that has at least, it should be thin. I mean, you don't need an inch thick. The plies are put this way and this way so that they don't shrink. Wood generally shrinks one way. The xylem tissue, which is what wood is, doesn't shrink down this way. So when you build a log cabin, it shrinks this way, from circular down. So by doing that with plywood, it very seldom warps, very seldom. But masonite never does, because it doesn't have any structure. It's all random. Okay. I will pass around, where we put that darn swatch, oh, here. I'll send the swatch around. And then I'll send around, because we're talking about paper. This is a piece of Stonehenge. It looks like paper. You can see it's fairly smooth. For color pencil, I'd recommend that, but hey, if you like it bumpier, then do it. A lot of people do it on black. I know some guys, just amazing the kind of work they can do with black paper. And then there's one here that I got from one of my instructors called Fabriano. It's another paper of a similar kind and has this rough edge here. It doesn't mean they ran out of paper, but that's called a deckled edge. Almost for sure, it means it's cotton. And then the last one is watercolor paper. You can use watercolor paper. There's a strong kinship between watercolors and colored pencil. In fact, I've done a couple. This one has a watermark on it. It's a piece of the edge. And this is Arches paper. It happens to be 300-pound paper. A lot of paper is 90, and the best stuff is like 140. 300 pounds. You can paint on this and it doesn't get all wobbly. Not nearly, unless you really put a lot of water on. And then the other thing we'll be talking about is doing a transfer. How do you do that? Well, the short story is you're going to be drawing the object twice. Once to put it on a piece of mylar or acetate is clear, absolutely clear. Well, hell, I'll just send the whole thing in. This is a piece of plywood, and yes I did. I glued this Stonehenge onto it, if you want to demonstrate it or whatever. And then on top of that is a piece of acetate that's called Mylar, Duralar, a bunch of different names, but it's a monomer. Basically, it's an acrylic that's been preformed into a sheet. And believe me or don't, it's very clear. You can read, you can see everything underneath it. So if you're going to transfer an object, you can do that. That's not a very big piece. Yes?
How did you glue the paper to the plywood? Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of different adhesives that you can use. I would recommend against water adhesive or something like that, like Elmer's. I wouldn't recommend that. It comes in a spray can, 3M, a whole slug of them. Usually smells pretty strong. I wouldn't want to do it in this room, but they're going in it. But I put the paper out, and then I used to spray the paper, and then I put the paper down on top of the wood. But I found that it was a whole lot easier to spray the wood, because when you set the paper down, it wants to relax on you.
Yeah.
And then it sticks this way and that, and so it's not too good. So it will stay. It will not come off with even a little bit of water. Once it's bonded to a semi-rough piece of wood or masonite, it's there. And one I did here a couple of years ago, I had done a painting. I said, well, I could cut a new piece of, I have stacks of plywood. I can cut a new one, but I can use this one. I'll just take it off. No, it comes off in pieces. Not easy. So it's a permanent deal.
Excuse me, all right, I have a question. So all of, your process is all of your paper is adhered to the back before you start your transfer?
Right. There's no reason why. I've got some more Stonehenge here, and it's just held on the clipboard. You could do that, but you really need this is masonite too, by the way. But as long as you have a firm surface, because you're going to be using a sharp pencil part of the time. It's one of the advantages of a colored pencil is the detail work. And your body is trained to do your signature and do all, we have dang near prehensile. And so you want it secured down so it doesn't move. If you're drawing something and the paper moves, is not secured down very good, and you make an errant color or move up in the sky, it's probably gonna show. So you secure it down, and then almost always work this way. And you're working with brushes. I don't care which one you're talking about. Generally, you're jack back up on it a little bit. Once in a while, I'm sure that Paul, he's got some little pointers there, little pointing brushes. If you're gonna do detail, you can't use a house brush.
Yeah.
Well, I won't say you can't, because there are people who can do amazing things. The joy of painting, that guy. So, yes, I would secure it down, because what's gonna happen, this is the only thing between the front and the back of that painting. There is no backing board on there. And this is one of the big problems with most of the things where you're using a canvas. The dang thing's that thick. None of your frames are that thick. So it sticks out the back, and you've got elastic or whatever. This one falls over. Oh no, this one, it is secured with a little dart, and there's like 200 in the machine at a time. So it would take me, without exaggerating, 15 seconds to mount this thing. And if I decide, well, I've got a show and I really don't want to drag all this press board, I could pull these out so easily and just take just this piece.
Oh, wow.
And it's still, or when they finally send me to the old people's home, they don't have room for all that. I could stack these up this deep, and take my entire career's worth and put it in it.
Carl,
Yes,
I do have a question.
sure.
Typically, a photograph is like this, and now you're gonna make a transfer. How are you enlarging your original photo to be?
The easiest thing to do
Yes.
is, if it's a photograph, is to take a picture of it with your camera, with your phone.
Mm-hmm,
You go down to Walgreens,
mm-hmm,
Fred Meyer, and go into their photo department or whatever. And they have a machine there. They have computers dedicated for you to go in there, and you plug it in and you tell it, it says, do you want all these? There's 500 pictures. Yes. So it pulls them up, and then you go through a menu and it says, well, do you want another little one like you got in here? Or do you want to go to a poster? You say, poster? Yeah, so I would get, okay, I need to get some pictures, all right? Where did I put them? Yeah, it's gonna cost you about $12 to $15. This is from Massachusetts. This is Paul Revere, obviously. I happen to have done this. These are from my stock. This is one from Multnomah. It's actually Lateral Falls. I've done this one. It looks pretty good. It's pretty complicated. There's a lot going on in it. You remember this one, Pam?
Does the resolution matter on when you take the photo?
It will tell you, but most cameras, it won't be a problem. If the light's limiting, it could be. And it'll say, I ain't gonna guarantee this guy. You want it, I'll print it. I just say go ahead and take it, because unless it's really fuzzy or the lighting is really bad, you're an artist. You can go around that. If part of it isn't quite what you want, or you wanted to change something, you say, I had someone telling me, one of my last instructors, she said, oh, take that fence out of there. And I said, are you kidding? That's a challenge. I wanted that to look like a cyclone. How many cyclone fences do you see? And it fits there, it fits with it. Or, this is my place down at the beach. I took some snowballs. And so this is a pretty good sized picture. I can really get an idea. The smaller it is, the tougher it is for you to make it meaningful on getting the color and everything else. So you see all the shadowing here, that's really important. The color is really important, and the shape's really important. This is from Silver Creek Falls. I drew this one and it wasn't quite as satisfactory as I wanted.
Could you raise it up higher? For short people.
And there's one more. This is a cruise ship in Tahiti, actually, across the way. And there was a way, this cruise ship went in around the coral and pulled right into a little area here, and we were there for a day. And this happens to be the Crown Princess, it's a princess cruise. And this would be pretty challenging because there's a lot of detail. So for you detail nuts, you should have a couple. You really want to challenge yourself because you're going to learn something. It might look like socks on a rooster, but c'est la vie. It's not going to end up in the loo. You won't.
Can you turn it over to competency?
And here's another one that's quite I haven't done this one yet.
Is that in China?
No, this is Hawaii. It's their heritage. The island people settled Hawaii last after the Marquesas and Tahiti and so forth. But here is where my brain's saying, "Oh, how can I do that? That it looks like it's going around the corner, and you got little detail in here. Really, a lot easier to do with a pencil than a brush. But I've seen people do some amazing work with brushes, and so have you. Okay, so that's how you get to the same size. And there's ways, if you said, well, I don't want to put that kind of money in that. If you're charging $25 for your work, you've got that much in the picture. I don't really care. As long as the picture looks nice, it's like my wife said. She said, if you sell this painting, I will divorce you. She doesn't lie. But one of the interesting things about taking pictures, and I think that's another thing, if you are an art lover, then photography is something that you should buddy up to. Learning to take a picture. In this case, Oregon City Mayor said, there's going to be a show, and we wanted this. It was in 2012, I guess it was. No, it was later now. This bridge, which there's a lot of these arch bridges around, was 100 years old, and she wanted people to send in a picture of it. So I went down on the Crown Zellerback side and there's a little road that runs down underneath behind it. And so you could see the seawall and the water, the reflection in the water here. You can see the elevator, and it looks fairly real. I know I had a guy come in doing air conditioning. I said, just as a joke, I said, you recognize that picture? He says, yeah, I put the air conditioning on that building right there. So I thought, aha, it does resemble the real thing. So you can store these, I probably have 50 of them. Hate to admit it, knowing what they cost, but those are in the middle of the winter or whatever, those are memories. Almost everything that I've taken is a way for me to take a photograph, which is like that, and I'm lucky if I can corral somebody into looking at my stupid camera and showing them the picture. But I can put it on the wall, and it has my touch to it. This is not exact by any means. I'm saying it is. But it reminds me, in my old age when I'm having trouble writing my name, I did that, didn't I, kid? So, anyway, we put them up on the wall somewhere, and I switch them around once in a while so I don't go totally stir crazy. I'm partly there, but, the other thing is, some of you are not aware, I'm going to pass this around. This is Sorel. It's a transfer paper. It's basically a carbon. It's not really carbon paper. It's graphite. And it comes in pretty good sized sheets.
Do you ever use a projector?
I have, but I'm going to show you a method that's even easier. And some of you might want to throw up, so. Here's your lines. There's nothing wrong with looking at your, pardon?
I've used the projector a lot over the years.
Yeah. There are times when you should. Probably a projector is looking at a slide, 35mm slide, and you're shooting it across the room. It's highly unlikely it's going to be really crisp. Your mind will be able to tell what it is because your mind fills in the detail. So if it's something that's got detail in it, that's what really gets my attention. I go for an enlargement like that. A couple of other things I was talking about masonite. Since you're clearing the back there, you think I might be fooling you. Whatever, there's a piece of masonite. Don't steal it. It's really valuable. Probably worth 5 cents, maybe. And then another thing, Paul and I are aficionados of what's called a French curve, but don't use it very often. You can buy these at Hobby Lobby. I think there's six different ones. And no, it's not a Santa sleigh, but there's a bunch of different ones. And there are times when you're drawing something, and this surface is what's called curvilinear. It's not really linear, it's curving. And there are many different curvilinear shapes here. And so, I was talking to Paul about this before on his jet that's flying near Mount Hood, or a car, you would use something like this. You could. I mean, you don't have to, but if you want people to say, that looks pretty good, another artist says, that really looks good. Okay, I only paid $2 for this stupid thing, and I can simulate these curves. Where'd I put my paper? Oh. The paper, the pencil brands are numerous. I use Prismacolor. They're readily available. Some people don't like, they have some control problems in certain things. And so, like dark green, indigo blue, if you take a pencil and you drop it, it's not like graphite, it's wax. And so you can make little pieces of it inside, which is really maddening when you're trying to get it sharp and you take a $2 pencil. So you don't want to drop it. And then some certain colors are worse than others. But Lyra is made by, it's called Lyra Rembrandt. Derwent is English. Faber-Castell is German. And they have slightly different colors than others. So remember, a lot of times in colored pencil, there'll be one color that I put in. And I'm forced to, for instance, this tugboat is virtually all the same color. Actually, it's several different colors, and I've had to shade it down to make it look realistic and just make this tarp look like it's bending around there. I was on a 1,000-foot cruise ship, and we'd just gone underneath the bridge in Sydney, and this guy was kind of being our insurance policy to make sure we didn't hit the bridge or whatever. And we didn't need him. In the last 10 years, cruise ships have changed so that they don't have a propeller that sticks out the back, and they would need all kinds of tugboats to get the big monster in there. But now it's called an osteopod, so it comes down and there's a propeller that can turn 360 degrees, and it's electric. So they use a diesel engine and it runs the propeller. And they can turn on their own axis. I saw this first when I was in Spain, Cadiz. Wow! The ship came out, it just pushed itself away from it, and then it just turned right around on its own axis. They use pumps up in front. But anyway, this is part of the scene. Some people say, well, wait till that boat gets out of there so we can see the opera house. No. In fact, there's a big ship here was docked. But there's more than just pencils. You can get, up at Hobby Lobby, they have what's called Master's Touch. And I would say every other month or every 3 months, they will put everything on for 40% off. And their paints are not that expensive. They aren't as quite as good. Most pencils are made with pencil cedar, it's the incense cedar. It grows here in Oregon prolifically along the coast. But some of them use other, like alder and so forth. It doesn't really much matter. It just keeps the wax from breaking primarily. So, I want to also mention that in addition to your colored pencil, there are specialty pencils. So there's graphite. Some of them have graphite in the color for certain effects. Metallic. There's a lot of times when you want to use metallic, if there's a bell or a car or something like that. There's some that are called tricolor, and I'll show you something if you want. And it actually has 3 different little pieces in there. Well, I should say 3 different colors. Not blended, but they're actually, so that when you want to do a tree or something like that, you can use 3 different colors, but you can use a tricolor too. And do the lion's share of it with the tricolor. There's one called Verithin, and it has less wax and more pigment. And so you can sharpen it strong enough to give yourself a tattoo. There's one called Colorase. A lot of them have never heard of that. Colorase has very little wax in it, and so it will erase quite well. If you're tracing an object or whatever, and you don't want a dark line all the way around the object that you're doing, you can use a Colorase and it goes away. And then there's watercolors. Watercolors are, I haven't used very much. I've used watercolors. When you use a watercolor pencil, you'll get color. You don't have to use a watercolor brush, but you can. If you want it to grade out to nothing, that's it. Other marking devices are what are called art sticks, and I have some that I've hidden away here somewhere. Art stick is nothing more than just the pigment. There's no wood around it, but it's a big enough chunk of wax that you can mark some things with it, if I could only find them. Maybe I did put it in. But it can be used, and you say, well, what do you need all this junk for? When you're gonna do a sky or something like that, a pencil or anything, when you're up in the sky and you're putting this color in, it gets kind of tedious. And so maybe you use too much pressure or a little bit of pressure. Guess what? You're gonna see that. It's not gonna go away. You put that color there, you're gonna be able to maybe lessen a little bit, but you'll see it. So if you take something like this crayon, this is called Neocolor 2. There's Neocolor 1. Neocolor 1 is just like an expensive crayon made by France. And so it's strictly just wax. It's a resist. It's what's called a resist if you do colored pencil. Use a clear resist and you put that on there, or a masking agent or whatever. And so then you put your paint right over it. And then in the masking agent, you just rub that rubber cement off, and then you get paper again that's totally white. With these, if you put this down on your paper, if it's a Neocolor 1, it's just like using a crayon. It's not gonna come off very well. But Neocolor 2 is a science product. It's just like mayonnaise, it's what's called an emulsion. They beat the water up and put they beat it so badly, it's like when you're making really nice ice cream, there's lots of air bubbles in there, water bubbles in there, whatever. And it has the wax particles far enough apart that when you take your brush in there, the water says, okay, I'll take these little particles, it gets those sandy material, whatever, and move it around. So this is just like watercolors, except that it's pretty strong. So I use these quite a little bit. Then there is, okay, we talked Neocolor 1 and 2, art sticks, and then there's what's called ink tints. So it has a lot of brightness to it, and a little goes a long way. And then, just a couple of, you don't have to have any, you only need is 3 or 4 of them in a piece of paper. But if you get carried away, there's little specialty areas you can go into. For instance, I was gonna show, this is what, this is the typical colored pencil box. It's a 72. They have 150 colors. Generally costs around $90 or something like that. But there's 3 more trays in here. And at home, you know, it says, I have all the blues, and then another tray with greens, and then yellows, and then reds and maroons, and then blacks. There's about 10 of them. But this is where I go and get my other ones, along with a couple other boxes. I'm grateful that my wife's not doing any kind of an inventory on me. This, if I die unexpected, you can say, that rat! This is Lyra, Rembrandt, and some people, this is holy. I shouldn't have ever shown it to you.
Rembrandt, I know that guy. Was he an artist? He was an artist.
Yes.
Well, he was. This is the brand name. He didn't come up with it.
Well, Rembrandt was an artist. He was.
Yeah, sure. That's the whole idea. The Rembrandt color, 72, not cheap. They're $50, $70, depends on where you buy it. And that's French. And then Color Soft is another one. Same kind of a pencil, essentially. The only difference is they had a better idea. These are a little bit thicker. And so you say, well, what's the difference? Well, it won't go into a regular pencil sharpener for one. So you have to have, you know, a fatter pencil sharpener. And then again, this is watercolor. And these are pretty good, considering, it says here, $30, 48 colors, you want to get started. So, you know, I say, well, I don't know if I want to spend $30. You don't have to. I just happen to be up there getting something else. They have them all on sale. I don't have any stock in the company. $15. 15 for 48 colors. That's 30 cents a piece. And if you decide, this is stupid, there's way too much work, then throw them away. Or put them in the lower cabinet, whatever. So you don't have to buy everything. And the best thing about watercolors is you can draw your drawing, you can take your water and, you know, cause it to blend or not. You don't have to use water on it, but you have that option. So you can get started pretty easily. You don't have to pay $100, whatever it might be. And then
For
there's,
those watercolor ones, you can blend a little bit to make another color if you do 2 layers.
oh
of
yeah,
water.
yeah, probably better than the wax.
Yeah.
The rule on, the general consideration is that what goes down first is kind of like who got to mom and told the story first. So if you put down some blue and then you want to put another color on there, let's say crimson or something like that, it's going to be a different color than if you put down crimson and then blue. But what goes into there becomes the background color, and it's the big daddy. Yeah.
Could you use solvent with a watercolor pencil?
Sure. It still has wax. It's just that it's an emulsion, and so they've got this big vat of color when they're making 1 billion pencils. They put some water in it and then just beat it, just like mayonnaise is what? Egg white and oil. And they don't go together normally. You work up, you know, muscles like Arnold Schwarzenegger if you do it in your kitchen. But, you know, they've got a way to really beat that up. And there's quite a few products that are made that way. So, yeah, you can use solvent on any of them.
What's the solvent you use?
The solvent I'm using is called OMS. It's also called Gamsol. Gamsol is made here in Portland by the Gamba.
Gamba.
It's Grumbacher. And you get a little tiny bottle like this and it's like $8. And whoa! I would go to the art store and pay $15 maybe and get a quart of it. A quart's enough to last you. Somebody like me, I use it not every day, but quite often. And I have some, I'll pass it around, what the heck. Don't do you any good, it's in the bottle. But it's called OMS, meaning it is odorless mineral spirits. So it's turpentine that doesn't have a smell. They've removed all the organic volatile compounds out of it, so you virtually can't smell it. I could be doing it here and you wouldn't say, "Oh, what's he doing up there? It stinks." It doesn't stink like turpentine. Pardon? Oh, yeah. As a matter of fact, one of the cheaper places to get it, you get Mona Lisa. Mona Lisa solvent is used in oils all the time to clean brushes.
I've done it.
Because oils are light material, so it'll clean.
Do you use brushes when you're applying your solvent?
No,
What do you use?
you could. I've got here a baggie of things. There's no earwax in any of these Q-tips, by the way. But there are some other ones here that look like they haven't been fed right. They're craft tips. They come to a point. But when you've got a big object, you dip this in the solvent. I just take the top off that thing, squirt a little bit in there, and I'll dip it in there. And then when you go over it, it will change I'll show you. I'm going to show you how that happens. But if you've got a really small object, let's say a line, or like you're doing a piece of grass or something, this one's pointed and we'll go right into it. Plus there's some other interesting things you can do. I was surprised the first time I saw my instructor show grass up front in a picture. Wow, how'd you do that? Because there's everything going on behind it. There's some other things here that, I think you gotta have. For instance, I went into a store once down, it was down where Blick's used to be. And some young woman went in, she was told by her instructor what to get. She says, "Do you have any electric erasers?" And he says, "No." So she walked out, and I happened to be standing there at the display, and he says, "Can you imagine someone so lazy he can't even use an eraser?" I said, "You do know that there's a special use for erasers, for electric erasers, that it can do things that you cannot do with a regular eraser." And it's a little piece of a pretty decent eraser. It doesn't smear so much as a lot of them. And it's just a battery, and it actually spins so fast that it will spin wax right off the paper. Not all of it, but 90% of it. So I'll pass it around, you play with it. And then the other thing is a sharpener. I said, well, that's no big deal, I'll just use the one at home. The one you have at home is never gonna make that pencil as sharp as it should be. They're battery operated. Actually, if you decide that it shall be, you can put it over on hand and go. Most of the time you'll break the tip off. So they're a lot sharper, make a lot sharper. Well, that was sharp already. And it's got a little starter, just like any other. And it will make pretty sharp point. You don't always work with a sharp point. A lot of times you want to cover a big area, and you don't want to be, you could actually damage the paper. We have sharp things like this thing here is a scriber. I'll pass this around. It's a steel point, and you can make a little furrow. It's like you're making a record or something. Don't do that unless you know darn good gel. Yeah, okay, here we go. There's a bunch of erasers and things of that nature.
Carl, what brand is that sharpener?
Curate. Sharpeners also curate. These are $5, and it comes with a spare grinder.
Would you
Not a bad
spell
deal.
that? Who makes it?
It's called Curate. It's home. Oh, I just mentioned it. Hobby Lobby. Here are some different kinds of. This is called woodless. That means there's no wood around it. It's all pigment. We're doing skies and water bases and stuff like that. These are art sticks. I'll show this you real quickly. Use it pretty brilliant colors for doing skies and large areas without damaging the surface in a very short order. Okay.
So Carl, because you use the solvent, you can use woodless pencils?
You can use solvent on any of them.
Any of them, okay.
If they're wax pencils. These are, if you want to save yourself some money, you don't want to go out and buy a big set, you can buy, this is ink tints, real bright stuff. This one is metallic. This one's strictly landscape. This one's botanical, so they're different colors. Doing flowers, maybe you don't want those other colors. You can put this in your pocket. You go on vacation, take along something to work on. And there's one here, there's even one for under the sea. Okay, I showed one of these here earlier. There's several different makers. These all happen to be Prismacolor. This is Statler. Statler's an engineering firm, and they have their pencils. Oh, they don't roll. They don't roll off and break. But you wouldn't break that taking it anywhere. And then they have one here you can buy. This one's also on sale. It turns out I've got 6 of them. The portrait colors are designed specifically, so you don't have to have the whole set, but it has colors that will work for most portraits. And I said, well, that wasn't quite good enough for me because. So I took a regular Prismacolor set here and I changed it out so I have more colors. And then if I go down one level, I have more colors. And then below that is in case I use one of them up. So when you do, I have seen some of the most expensive color pencils, which might go for $1,200 in a pretty good sized painting. It win first in show are portraits. And I don't know, I don't quite see it, but somebody looks at it, they don't know that person mad and they say, whoa, I know somebody who looks just like that. Anyway, if you're really serious, and you've got to have every color so that you can make every shade and show the little peachy cheeks or whatever it might be. Okay, I've been given the sign. Some of the techniques, let me show you just a couple of things. What did I do with my solvent? Oh, it's right here. The way you would do a big area, see I've drawn hypothetical sky. And I take a piece of, this is a microfiber, and I'm gonna squirt a little bit on it, not a lot. And then I do this to distribute it. And then
Oh, okay.
it's probably gonna take a little bit more. You don't do it all in one clatter. Probably
And
needs
that's
more.
how you've done the water and
Oh, yeah.
with the
Yeah.
tugboat?
And you can come back at any time. This is the wrong color, by the way, but you take the color and you put some more color in here, and then you do it again and again and again until it's, gone. If you put too much on there, it's going to remove the wax. So that's why you put some on the top, put some on the microfiber, distribute it, and then go about taking care of that. Okay, I wanted to show you one other thing. Let's see, do the Q-tips get back? Okay. think everyone's seen a Q-tip. There's some cracked tips. This is where it's been added, and you can see, thank you. The color pencil generally leaves a little bit of nap, unless you, here it's been a little bit more. This happens to be blue-gray. That's how you would darken it. And over here I've added some 30% warm gray, 90% French gray over here on this part, and can't read up to now. Crimson red over here. Now on this one, I'll show you just the same kind of effect, but it's more dramatic. What I do is take the top off, squirt some in there, dip the Q-tip in there, get it pretty soaked.
Can you turn just to, thank you.
Oh, wow.
The white goes away. I'm not adding color, but it sure looks like I am. It's because you're not seeing that white in there.
Will it dry lighter?
It'll dry just like this. It's not like acrylic where it's different when it's wet. And it doesn't dry real fast. It's non-volatile. It takes about 12 to 24 hours for it to completely dry, but I didn't get any color out of that. So that's one of the things you can do. And then there's other things for doing grass and things like that. But I'm gonna be penalized if I go into that. Oh, okay, a couple of caveats. Good idea, if you like the idea. Then that's all this is things I've learned. Don't do that because it's gonna cause more work. You might get a better effect, but probably not. The pigment is being rubbed onto the paper, so parts of it will fall off, what we call spalling. And it will fall around on your work area, especially if you're working with black or dark blue. And so you take your brush, which I've got here somewhere. This is called a molly. You can use any brush. You can use a house brush if you wanted to. This happens to be nice and smooth. And when I'm working on something like this, I'm putting a lot of color on, like over here. I make sure, you don't see anything right now, of course I brushed it on. But pieces will fall down there, and you'll be surprised after working on something for a couple of hours, you'll get things like that happen. You didn't put any color down there, but little pieces fell down there, and your hand's warm, and so it. So yeah, keep your work area clean. Okay, now someone asked me about transferring images and the way you do it. There's two different ways of doing it. One is you can buy a kit like this called Grid Art, and you probably did this in grade school. This has like 12 different grids in it, and they're all basically 8 by 10. So here's a postcard. Let's say you wanted to do that postcard, and you didn't want to go and have it enlarged, which I was telling you about. You can take a picture of it and then have it enlarged. But if you just want to use this, you say, I don't have time to go and do that, and I'm not going to do that. Well, it's 8 by 10 or 16 by 20, whatever size you want to make it. And then you grab, here's a piece of paper on a grid, which I started working on it. And so there's 20 this way and only 10 here, and there's 16 this way and only 8 over here. So you would, every square that you see on this, in this particular example, would be 4 of them. And you just draw everything in that square to here. More work, but it does work. The other way, and Ralph, this is probably, this is a picture that I took. I didn't take. This was actually taken by David Roberts 180 years ago on the Nile. I've been here. This is the Luxor, and this is the Nile. And there is a picture here that I blew up. He's dead, so I don't imagine he's gonna come and get me. But at any rate,
I'm gonna tilt it just a little bit like that.
it's got a lot of a lot of character and it's romantic as can be with these sailboats, these feluccas and so forth. And then this is old as old can be, Ramses II. So what I've done is I put this on a board just for stability. Put a piece of Mylar, this happens to be an envelope like I was showing these other pictures in. I slip the picture in there and secure it down with a couple of clamps. And then I take a Sharpie, a fine tip Sharpie, and I mark the whole dang thing down wherever I need to do it. And so that when you're done marking, this will go on your pen. Now you have to draw it again. You take a scriber and you put a piece of Sorel, and then you mark it down. Now, if you're doing your own photographs, absolutely no problem whatsoever. I mean, how would anyone, what would they do? So if David Roberts could come back from the dead, he'd probably come back and say, you're not supposed to do that. So anyway, then you go ahead, now you've got your shape, and if you've done your colors, you take a look at this and you've done a color swatch, see how that works, and you can see the shading. Then you make a painting yours. Looks pretty much like the other one, doesn't it?
Oh, beautiful.
Carl, we're gonna have to,
Okay, good.
you're getting the hook, I'm sorry.
All right.
But we gotta get on.